Microsoft has a Windows Phone problem. Happy Friday, friends. It is a Friday. Hopefully you have had a wonderful week. This is going to be the last podcast for like 3 weeks or so, primarily because I am going into the mountains. I'm going to go do what I love to do, which is go to the national parks in the United States. Actually, we're going to also visit our first Canadian national park. Although I guess maybe Niagara Falls might be a Canadian national park. Not sure. But we're going to be up in the Banff area. We're going to be in northern Montana at Glacier National Park. And so, yeah, I'm going to be gone getting some cleansing of the soul with some fresh air. And so there will be no podcast, but there will be somebody staying at my house taking care of my dog. So we've got that. Anyways, those are sidetracks to the main course because there's a lot going on. There's AI does not slow down, and the industry is there's some things going on. So hopefully you had a wonderful week, friends. Let's dive into the tech news. So the first thing up, Intel is slashing a lot of jobs, 5,000 jobs to be specific. Although I didn't realize Intel has about 108,000 employees, but Microsoft slashing jobs, Intel slashing jobs. There's a lot of job slashing going on, which is not a good thing. However, there's still, that's ballparking 5%, a little less than 5% of their headcount, which is still significant. Intel is trying to still figure out its future, but there's a lot going on. Copilot is finally getting memory, so that's cool. Now, this is one of those things that feels like it took a long time for this to happen, mostly because the other players in the industry, OpenAI, Claude, all these other companies, are just moving so quickly that Intel, maybe that's a bad little flub there, but Microsoft is just trying to keep up. And so when you have these other companies who are, steam just barreling ahead, they feel like it's late, but at the same time, Microsoft also does things a little differently, right? Because they have corporate data, they gotta have certain safeguards in place, the guide rails and all those things. But whatever, Copilot finally getting memory, and so there it comes. However, this kind of blends nicely into the next kind of conversation here. So Sensor Tower put out a report of chatbot downloads, if you will, from the app stores. And Microsoft's got a little problem here. So obviously ChatGPT is by far the industry leader with 938 million downloads. Following closely, and by closely I mean not close at all, is Google Gemini with 200 million. Then you have DeepSeek, 127 million, and then you have Microsoft Copilot at 79 million. Now, in a vacuum, 79 million, that's a lot of downloads. I don't dispute that. However, in comparison to the juggernauts in the industry, like Microsoft is like, a cat scratching out a post just trying to get attention here at the end of the day. And it's challenging for Microsoft because, OpenAI and Claude, these guys are announcing things literally every week. Like you have Claude Code, which is pretty darn good. You had OpenAI announce their agents today. It's like they are just pummeling the industry with announcements, and Microsoft, obviously people are gonna be like, yeah, but Copilot uses all the stuff that ChatGPT does. It uses the same models, but the features and functionality are starting to really you're seeing the gulf starting to go out. And if you go read like Hacker News or sysadmin over on Reddit and all these other things, they will deploy Copilot to various places, but people just want ChatGPT in the workplace because it's more versatile. And it's not that Copilot is inherently bad, but it's the Windows Phone of the smartphone community. That is what I'm getting at here. So, right, you have, and slice this however you want, but we'll say ChatGPT is iOS and that Google Gemini is Android. You could flip-flop that either way. It doesn't matter, but I chose Google Android for obvious reasons. And then there was Windows Phone, and we all know what happened with Windows Phone. And Microsoft dumped billions into that. Didn't work out. They're dumping billions into Copilot, and Microsoft is not going to walk away from Copilot. That I think is not going to happen. That would be pretty catastrophic. And Microsoft, to their benefit, by the way, has this massive inertia called Office and the productivity suite, and they have the corporate data in OneDrive and SharePoint and Teams. They have all that data, and I suspect that they're going to put up pretty heavy barriers to letting other chatbots start interacting with that data. I think that's going to be right. That's going to be the thing that keeps them relevant to be like, yeah, I want to use ChatGPT at home, but I'll use Copilot in the workplace or something like that. But it's genuinely like interesting for Microsoft because they have unlimited resources, yet here we are not really saying that Copilot is a front runner in the AI conversation. And I know people will like it and people will have their fans, and that's perfectly fine. But the data suggests that ChatGPT is the new Kleenex, right? I think that's relatively agreed upon. Gemini, for its, Google had some roughness out of the gate, right? They were, for a while, it's like, can Google catch up, right? Their whole thing's at risk, whatever. But Google has done admirably. They've climbed back. And so, yeah, like, it's an interesting place for Microsoft to be. And I want to see how Microsoft is going to navigate this going forward. They will continue to talk about all their success, including this little one. So if you noticed, recently there was an announcement for, the city of San Francisco is now going to be using 30,000 endpoints are going to get access to Copilot. If you dig a little deeper, I don't think it's their full-on Copilot. I think it's Copilot. I think there's you need to read the tea leaves here. But I think the bigger thing here is Microsoft also announced that Ignite is going to San Francisco. It just doesn't it feel like there's something there? Like, hey, we'll bring our massive conference to your city if we can do a PR where it says like, hey, all your city employees, 30,000 of them, by the way, are going to get access to Copilot. Do 30,000 San Franciscan city employees need access to Copilot? I don't know, but that was the headline right after they announced that they're taking Ignite, which used to be other places, back to San Francisco. So there you go. Anyways, moving on here. Windows 11, you will no longer be able to use this system tray simplification for time and date. Microsoft says they heard the feedback loud and clear, so they actually maybe did open the feedback hub, which I guess we should, etch that in the walls of the cave as like 3 for the third time they've ever probably done that. But hey, here we are. They're saying that they hear you and they're going to back it out. So, yeah. On to the gaming news, my friends. Free play days coming on up. Skull and Bones, Destiny 2, Breakout, Blades of Fire, and a couple others are going to be free to play days for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, Standard, and Core customers. So just kind of keep that on the mind here. The bigger news of the week is actually allowing Xbox insiders with Game Pass Ultimate. You can now stream your own games on the Xbox app. This is a cool feature. Like this is one of those things that Microsoft should have done a long time ago. And I'm not going to bash them for that, right? They made it happen. They brought it. It's like one of those things that's right in the wheelhouse of what Microsoft should be able to do. They finally done it, and there you go. It'll be rolling out, I'm assuming, to everybody maybe next month in that monthly update, or maybe a month later, I guess, depending on how things go. The headline, though, in the Xbox world that made a lot of headlines is, what is the ROG Xbox Ally going to cost? There was some leaked information saying it might be like $700 for the entry level in quotations here, and up to $1,000 for the high end. We don't know. These are, it's hard to tell, like, were these numbers placeholders, were they estimates, right? This used to happen with GameStop a lot. Like, people would find listings for a piece of hardware that's coming, and then it was GameStop just literally just guessing on price and just putting it in there, and somehow that page got made public and people found this. If you're saving up money and like you're saying, I'm going to buy an ROG Ally, get $1,000. That would be my recommendation, because either way, you're either going to come out ahead because it's like, hey, it's a little bit less, or you're going to be right in the ballpark, I think, for the higher end model, if that's what you're targeting. But my personal opinion was I always kind of figured the X would be around $900 to $1,000. So just keep that in mind. We will find out eventually what the actual pricing is. But for now, my friends, we have questions. Always my favorite part. So let's dive into the questions here with Bilal. We'll say, apologies if you have had this question. No apologies needed. If you have had this question asked many times before, do you think Microsoft will ever make another smartphone? How is this likely on a scale of 0 to 10? So that is an interesting question, because there's two scenarios. How likely is Microsoft to ever create their own phone from scratch and go like what they did? Like manufacture, own like a Nokia. That's probably almost a 0. Would they ever partner with another company like they do on the Surface now, where these OEMs or ODMs are just designing things and they're slapping their names on there? That might be more plausible at some point if they find that they have a direct need for it. But I think it's honestly probably pretty low. So the thing in the back of my mind that you also hint in the second part of your question is like, what about with OpenAI stuff? Do you think we're starting to see any positive outcomes from this? Well, we know OpenAI is making hardware, right? That's why they bought Johnny Ives IO, or whatever they renamed it, IO Widgets, something like that, and got sued or whatever. That's why they bought Ives companies to do that stuff. So maybe there's a Microsoft tie-in that they would mimic whatever OpenAI is going to do in the hardware space, and that might make some sense at some point. But either way, it's an. If you guys aren't familiar with what's going on with Microsoft and OpenAI, and I don't mean like they use the same models, I mean it has got to be awkward every time they meet, because OpenAI is going after like productivity tools. They have these new agent things. They can go out and do stuff. And like Microsoft, that's our bread and butter. Like, do not touch Office. And like OpenAI is like, we don't really care. We're going to go do our own thing. Like Microsoft built this, gave them tons of money, and the investment has exploded in value. Exploded. But Microsoft's on the outside, like grabbing onto the leg of OpenAI, like bring us with you, like through all this stuff. And OpenAI is like, yeah, thanks for the help, bro. We're going to keep doing our own thing, and we don't really care. And so, yeah. And then he says, thank you for hosting such a consistent and great podcast. I appreciate you. Like I said, I do this as my brain dump. There's also a part of this, I shouldn't say it's too loud because my wife is home. Like, my wife doesn't want to hear like me talk about this stuff. My wife does not care about this. I love my wife to death. We're going to go spend a great time in the mountains and do all this stuff. But she does not care about the fracture between OpenAI and Microsoft, or if a Windows phone is coming around, or Game Pass Ultimate. Like, she doesn't care. And so this is how I get this out of my noodle and into a recorded audio form that's probably been scraped by AI to regurgitate it in some other voice at some point. Mr. PKI says, we know a lot of older machines do not have TPM 2.0 and could not upgrade to Windows 11. I don't know the answer to this. I do not know. Does Windows Server 2025 have the same TPM 2.0 requirement? That is a good and interesting question. I honestly do not know. I don't know. I would ask Siri, but I actually want an answer. So Siri, you want to, okay. I owe Microsoft some credit, right? I've talked about Copilot being that third character, right? Siri is, oh look, she just turned on, the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And then like Copilot's at the top, and then like you go higher up for the other, like Siri. The Apple one is just comically bad. And so like they're reportedly looking at like acquiring Mistral. It's the French company. So we'll see. We will see. Todd says, thanks for your content. Thank you, Todd. Thanks for hanging out. Do you think Microsoft should follow Nintendo's lead and include a dock with a new Xbox Ally? If so, would it be worth 1,000 bones? So like a lot of thoughts run through the noodle with this one, because it's like, if you're talking about the Xbox Ally, which is not Microsoft's product, I do think that a dock in there would be, especially on the higher end, so you could plug it into a TV, would be a smart move. I do think that would be a smart move. Now, when Microsoft builds their own first-party next-gen Xbox, we don't think they're going to do a handheld, so I don't think a dock really comes into play. But if the Ally X, but here's the problem: it's still not an Xbox. Like, I know Microsoft's like, this is an Xbox, so you can play. I can't go play my full content library. I always point that way, or I should point right straight down where the other Xbox Series S is right in front of me. Like, I can't play all those games on the device. To me, it's still a PC and it's an Xbox and PC clothing, or should it be a PC and Xbox clothing deck? It's one of those, right? It's not a full like Xbox, like the mask guy, like the Bane. I was born into this. Like, that's not. I am like on a very sugar high or something, but it's not like pure blood Xbox, if that makes sense. So Jovial says, Brad, since your channel is main Xbox and Microsoft and Xbox related news, how have you avoided internet drama for so long? Are there any rules you follow in particular? Well, I guess it depends how you define drama. Like, if I do a negative Xbox post or a video, and I don't consider it negative, I consider it factual. The internet just goes, Brad Sams doesn't know what he's talking about. And there has been some drama with the Xbox Series S, although that was not internet related. I got a ton of traffic to the site, but on the behind the scenes drama with the Microsoft was a little bit more sus, if you will. However, there is one rule that I follow on all social media, and I consider Reddit, YouTube, and no politics. I vote in every election. I very much have my political beliefs. None of you want to hear it. So, and I like, that's me too. Like, I listen to other podcasts. I love to listen to like astronomy podcasts and like science, like Veritasium. Like, I love that Xbox channel and like Vsauce and that kind of stuff. But I don't want to know who they vote for. I don't care. I don't care what side of the spectrum it is. I don't want to know because I just don't. So no politics. That is my one rule. And the reality is my Xbox channel and my Twitter and my social and my Blue Sky and my Instagram is a reflection of my own personality, which is generally optimistic. I'm not a negative person. Like, I'm just not a negative person. I'm at work when things are bad, and things have been bad in the past and they'll be bad again. I always say I can find sunshine in the back of a cave. Like, that is something I say, because if you don't have hope and you don't have optimism, then you lack a lot of things. And if you get too caught up in the negative, like, here's a very real example. Many people watching this know I love airplanes, but I do not like flying. However, I love national parks. So I have to focus on the national park getting there and getting those experiences, and not the flying part and the turbulence part, which is what really kind of screws me up in the head. So that is just kind of it. Die Hard with DYE. I love it. I hope you have a lot of tie-dye. Says, and that's not what he says. He says, had a question about these co-engineered AMD chips with Xbox. Do you foresee them being offered in upgradable systems so that you can, for example, add faster RAM and discrete GPUs and still retain the Xbox backward compatibility? That is my hope. So I kind of talked about this previously, and I'm going to use a wrong analogy here, but it just kind of wraps things together. Right, we know what system on a chips are, right? It's the whole, everything's packaged up there, and they're popular. Apple is known for this kind of stuff. I hope that the next Xbox is more aligned to like a system on a chip. So there's the V1 Xbox chip, and if you have that chip, then you can play Xbox native games because all the specs align to the Xbox demographic spec sheet to run native games for the work that Microsoft has done. Next year that comes out, there's the Xbox V2 chip, and it's just a chip, but that chip can also run Windows 11. It can also do all the other things, but it has the right componentry to do that. So to answer your question indirectly, I'm not sure how Microsoft is going to lock it down specifically. This is like one of the big unknowns because, again, AMD has built the chips for the last couple generations. Microsoft can do the emulation, but it's much easier when you have a locked configuration. That is why consoles have always made sense. It's like developers, at least for initially, you only got to target one spec. And now it's even kind of like 1.5, 2 specs. But PC gaming has really matured that industry up, and it's a lot easier to target multi-specs now. So I'm not so much caught up in that. But do I think you'll be able to upgrade RAM? I hope so. I hope that it's more aligned to that model, with the caveat that means that there are non-Microsofts, if you will, building Xbox consoles. I do believe that, they've already told us, there will be an Xbox console. Whether or not that particular one can upgrade the RAM, or if you can buy that AMD system on a chip from Dell or Lenovo or Mad Catz, if they're whatever, Razer, could you upgrade the RAM there? I bet you probably could. I bet that's what I kind of hope. No Talent Talon says, this one's tough. How many units do you think Xbox Ally will sell? And do you think the Windows enhancements Microsoft is making for this device will eventually come to all Windows devices? I absolutely think it will come to all Windows devices that are categorized in as an Xbox that they're trying to, although I can't even see why they want it. Like, if they can make gaming better on Windows, they're going to do it across the board, unless there's some detriment to the general gaming experience that we're not aware of. But then I can't imagine how that's going to work on the handheld or the next gen console if it doesn't work on the proper PC, right? These all just feel like things that Microsoft should be able to do and then share amongst the community of Microsoft gamers. So how many do I think the Xbox? I have no idea. This is tough. So I don't even know, because I don't have a benchmark that I know off the top of my head. Like, how many of the Steam Deck sold, right? It's going to be something probably less than that. And so how much I bet, here's my prediction. It is somewhere more than a Logitech G Cloud and somewhere less than a the Steam handheld. That is my official guess. So there you go. And Mr. PKI ending it. Ooh, that probably peaked the mic there. Ending it with a double dose of questions for the week. He says, I heard Start 11 is built using C++. Why not Rust? Is that the new main language for Windows components? So yes, Start 11 is a C++ based start menu replacement. We call it the industry's best or most advanced start menu for a reason. There's no React Native code in there. Yes, I just said that because there is in Microsoft's. I don't know why converting it to Rust has never been a conversation yet, although it'd make for a great headline. I don't candidly know how hard and or easy that would be. That is a question I do not know. I wonder if the AI could probably help us. And his last question of the week, he says, it seems like Doom, the Dark Ages, is just a very long slog and not really a story. Did you stick with it and finish all the chapters? So I'm a little bit more than halfway. Here's a Brad factoid for you. I am terrible at following narratives. And this isn't like a new thing. It's been my entire life. I don't get invested in stories. I can't, my brain just does not align to following the plot line of any of the Call of Duties, any games realistically. And so I don't play Doom for the plot, let's put it that way. And so to me, it's more of just I need a mental break and just need to go bash some monsters. But it is a long slog. The game is very long for a single player game in that regard. And so if you're in it for the story, which it sounds like maybe the story is not great, then maybe it is a long slog if you're just trying to finish the story. But for me, I'll sit down and play chapter 1 a week maybe, and then just kind of plow through it, and it's just my decompression, if you will, if I'm not going to go jump into the Call of Duties. So, whew, there you go, guys. That's going to wrap it up here for a couple weeks. I will be back, unless I get eaten by a grizz. Although, candidly, I think I'm more scared of a moose than I am a grizzly. We'll have bear spray. There's no doubt we'll have 2 cans of bear spray. I will have one. My wife will have one. So yeah, we'll have bear spray, and hopefully we don't have to use it. I'd like to see these creatures from a distance, but the moose, and somebody with more wildlife experience could definitely back me on this, or call me out if I'm wrong. Black bear, brown bear, they're cuddly and a little skittish. Grizzlies will absolutely screw you up. They will charge you and destroy you. But I feel like it's kind of more of a known thing. You can see the grizz, it's going to come at you, it's going to eat you, it's going to kill you. That isn't a moose will just run at you for no reason. A moose will just bull charge, bear charge, whatever at you, because it's I sneezed 3 weeks ago and you're going to take the brunt of it. Whereas a grizz is okay, you invaded my space and you spooked me, I'm eating you. A moose would be I saw you from 3 miles away, I've been tracking you because you smelled weird. I didn't like your deodorant, so I'm going to run you over. Anyways, a moose. I hope we see all these creatures. I hope I don't get eaten by any creatures. And if I do, then I guess this is the last podcast ever. However, I hope that is not the case. Hopefully, friends, you had a wonderful week, and we'll catch all of you right back here in early August.